Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. India and Bhutan to connect by railway for the first time ever. 2 lines totaling nearly 90 kilometers to carry cargo and passengers. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal says India's trade pact with the European Free Trade Association to come into effect from the 1st of October. And Ukraine's President Zelensky proposes a joint aerial defense shield with European allies to protect against threats from Russia. Moldova's pro-EU ruling party has won a key parliamentary election with more than 50% of the vote. As per official results published on Monday, the Party of Action and Solidarity, headed by President Maia Sandu, had garnered 50.03% of the vote as compared to 24.26% for the pro-Russian Patriotic Bloc. The remaining distribution of votes cast suggests that the Party of Action and Solidarity could secure the critical majority it needs in the 101-seat chamber to avoid a potentially shaky coalition and keep Moldova's EU bid on track, a process requiring years of legislative efforts. An official final tally is expected later on Monday. The Kremlin on Monday accused the authorities in Moldova of preventing hundreds of thousands of Moldovans living in Russia from voting in an important parliamentary election by providing only 2 polling stations for voters in the country. Moldova's pro-European Union ruling party won a resounding victory over its Russian-leaning rival in the parliamentary election on Sunday. In a call with reporters, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Moldovans living in Russia were traditionally more likely to vote for pro-Russian political forces at home, had been unable to cast their vote.
Based on what we see and what we know, we can state that hundreds of thousands of Moldovans were deprived of the opportunity to vote in the Russian Federation, as only 2 polling stations were open for them. Naturally, it was insufficient and did not allow everyone who wanted to vote the chance to do so. That much we can say with certainty. We will be able to provide estimates later, once we understand political forces position themselves.
Ukraine has proposed a joint aerial shield with European allies. In an address via video link to a conference in the Polish capital Warsaw, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said Ukraine would like to build a joint aerial defense shield to protect against threats from Russia together with its European partners. Zelensky said that Ukraine can counter all kinds of Russian drones and missiles and act together in the region. He also said that he believed that US President Trump's attitude towards Ukraine and security in Europe had changed.
Ukraine proposes to Poland and all our partners to build a joint, truly reliable shield against Russian aerial threats, and this is possible. Ukraine can counter all types of Russian drones and missiles, and if we act together in the region, we will have enough weapons and production capacity for these. If Russia loses the ability to strike in the skies, it will be unable to continue the war.
After a weekend of intensive Russian bombardment of Ukraine, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius on Monday called for the European Union to provide a much more flexible regulatory framework for the defense industry in Europe. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius said that today the focus should be on empowering Ukraine and bolstering its defense.
Today we must focus on empowering Ukraine and bolstering its defense. The strongest security guarantee for the moment will be world-class equipment, sufficient resources and extensive training for the Ukraine armed forces. Ladies and gentlemen, Germany continues to stand firmly by the people of Ukraine. Our goal is to see Ukraine enter into meaningful negotiations to achieve lasting peace.
The US is now considering Ukraine's request to obtain long-range Tomahawk missiles for its effort to push back against Russian invaders. Earlier, the US had denied Kyiv's request for use of long-range missiles in the past, but has grown frustrated at Russian President Vladimir Putin's refusal to reach a peace deal. Meanwhile, Russia's military specialists were monitoring the possible supply of US long-range Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, but they would not change the situation on the battlefield. The Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said it was important to understand whether the United States or Ukraine would provide the targeting data for such missiles to be fired.
We have indeed heard these statements. We are now carefully analyzing them. They must be analyzed in terms of course, our military specialists are closely monitoring this. The question, as before, is the following. Who can launch these missiles? Even if they are located on their territory controlled by the Kyiv region, can they be launched solely by Ukrainians? Or must they be operated by American military personnel? Who is setting the target for these missiles? Is it the American side or the Ukrainians themselves?
US President Donald Trump voiced optimism that a deal is near to end the conflict in Gaza ahead of Monday's negotiations with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The two leaders will meet at the White House for a high-stakes discussion, which Trump has boasted could end the conflict in Gaza. Trump projected optimism on Sunday as his government works to close a comprehensive plan that would include the release of all hostages held by Hamas. A White House official said the U.S. plan calls for the return of all hostages, living and dead, no further Israeli attacks on Qatar, and a new dialogue between Israel and the Palestinians for peaceful coexistence. Trump did not provide specific details of a prospective ceasefire for hostages deal in Gaza, but Vice President J.D. Vance said that top U.S. officials are immersed in negotiations with Israel and Arab leaders. Vance believed that Trump's optimism is warranted, but he injected a note of caution as well.
These things can get derailed at the very last minute, so while I remain very hopeful, I am cautiously hopeful. I'm going to let the diplomats continue to work on this, but our principle here is very simple. We want all the hostages to come home. We want Hamas to no longer be a terror threat.
4 people have been killed, including the suspect in a shooting at a church in the U.S. state of Michigan. A man crashed his vehicle through the front doors of a Mormon church and came out firing an assault rifle, killing 2 people and wounding 8 others before dying in a shootout with the police. The perpetrator, identified as one Thomas Jacob Sanford, a 40-year-old man from the nearby town of Bhutan, also set fire to the church, which was engulfed in flames and billowing smoke. US President Trump called the incident horrendous in a post on his Truth Social account. The US agency FBI is leading the investigation into the shooting, with its officials calling it an act of targeted violence.
I can confirm at this time that the FBI is now leading the investigation and is investigating this as an act of targeted violence. FBI crisis response teams, such as our evidence response teams, SWAT, Special Agent Bomb Technicians, victim specialists, were deployed to the scene. We also have special agents who are continuing to conduct interviews and intelligence and professional staff personnel providing research and analysis.
Now, Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz is planning an auto industry summit next month to tackle the sector's deepening crisis. For more, we go across to our Deutsche Welle colleague Chiponda Chembelu in Berlin. Chiponda, what does this tell us about the broader state of the German economy?
Well, the auto industry crisis is a sign of the many challenges that Germany's largest economy is facing. Now, Germany is the only G7 economy that hasn't grown in the last 2 years, and this year it is projected to grow by a meager 0.2%. And that is despite the government loosening the debt brake with a plan to inject hundreds of millions of euros in defense and infrastructure spending over the coming decade. But of course, it's increasingly looking like that may not be enough to jumpstart the economy. And the auto industry isn't waiting. Now, car makers and their suppliers are pressing ahead with plans to cut costs and slash production. The sector has, of course, been struggling to compete with cheaper Chinese rivals on their home turf here in Europe. And they have also had to cope with a slowdown in China, which, of course, has been a key market for German car makers in the last decade. And then, of course, there were also those US tariffs this year, which, of course, only made the situation worse.
Mm-hmm. Is there any sign Germany can turn things around?
Earlier this year, Deutsche Bank economists warned that Germany's economic growth will remain below 1% until 2030 if nothing changes. The government says it does, of course, understand the urgency of the problem, and it has promised to cut red tape, lower energy costs, and reform the welfare system. But while plans to ease energy costs for businesses are included in the next budget, other reforms could prove more difficult. The governing coalition is divided. The center-right conservatives want pro-business measures, and the center-left, social democrats, are determined to protect the welfare state. Now, both sides also face pressure from voters who are drifting toward the far right and, of course, also the far left to a lesser degree. So Germany's economic challenges are also political. Now, the good news is that the country's low government debt gives Germany some breathing room. But there is a lot riding on what the government does now to keep industry investing here instead of cutting costs, as we've seen lately.
Chiponda, thank you. Chiponda Chimbelu reporting there from Berlin. Right, moving on, a complete shutdown strike is also being held in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir on Monday as markets and shops and businesses remain closed. Local media reported that all commercial activities were also halted, leaving streets deserted. The protests led to the closure of markets and transport services and disruption in network services for a second consecutive day. Schools remained officially open, but classrooms remained empty. The shutdown strike is in support of the Joint Action Committee amid rising public anger over long-standing unresolved issues. The Public Action Committee presented a list of 38 demands that aimed at securing genuine rights of people. A parade celebrating the ancient masked Japanese dance drama Gikaku took place in Japan's Asuka village, featuring participants in costume and masks performing to traditional music. The event was part of an ongoing project to revive Gikaku, a performance art believed to have been introduced from the continent to Japan approximately 1,400 years ago during the Asuka period. In a groundbreaking conservation effort, African wild dogs are making their return to Uganda after being functionally extinct for decades. 8 of these critically endangered animals brought from South Africa now call the Conservation Through Commercialization Park home, marking a pivotal moment in the country's wildlife restoration efforts. In Australia, beekeepers on Kangaroo Island are demanding biosecurity measures to prevent a deadly parasite from wiping out the island's world-famous bee sanctuary. The island is home to the purest strain of the Italian Ligurian bee, which has been protected by its isolation for 140 years.
From the deadly varroa mite, also impacted.
And still to come on DD India Live. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh chairs an annual Indian Coast Guard Commanders Conference in New Delhi. And Railways Minister Ashwini Vaishnav flags off 7 new trains for the pole-bound state of Bihar.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Minister of Railways Ashwini Vaishnav announced the launch of new railway projects between India and Bhutan on Monday. In a press conference, Minister Vaishnav outlined key features of the project, which will extend from India's railway network. The initiative involves an investment of approximately 4,033 crore rupees for a rail line spanning 89 kilometers.
This project is basically connecting two very important cities of Bhutan. One is Gelefu, as Foreign Secretary shared with us. This is being developed as a mindfulness city. And second is Samse, which is an industrial city. The two projects will take off from the network of Indian Railways at Kokrajhar and Banarhat. The investment which is envisaged at this point of time is about 4,033 crore rupees, and the total length is about 90 kilometers, to be precise. 89 kilometers of railway network will be created.
The minister also emphasized the strong economic ties between India and Bhutan, noting that the new rail network will contribute to strengthening Bhutan's economy.
India is the largest trading partner of Bhutan, and most of the EXIM trade of Bhutan is done through Indian ports. Therefore, it becomes very important to have a good seamless rail connectivity for the Bhutanese economy to grow and for the people to have better ways of access to the global network. So that's why this entire project has been taken up. And Samse and Gelefu, they have very important significance in the way the Bhutanese economic growth is being planned.
And Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri highlighted the relations between India and Bhutan, saying the relationship is that exceptional trust, mutual respect and understanding.
India and Bhutan share a relationship of exceptional trust, mutual respect and understanding. This is a relationship that is rooted in cultural and civilizational ties, extensive people-to-people relations, and our shared developmental and security interests. These ties are reflected in very close contact at the highest levels.
Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal attended the valedictory ceremony of the Uttar Pradesh International Trade Show on Monday. Addressing the gathering, the minister lauded Uttar Pradesh's achievements, emphasizing the state's commitment to ease of doing business and digital transformation. Highlighting the broader national impact, the minister said that over the past 11 years, Prime Minister Modi has reshaped India's economic landscape.
मोदी जी ने लगातार 11 वर्ष एक के बाद एक परिवर्तन किया, ट्रांसफॉर्म करी भारत की अर्थव्यवस्था को, भारत की सोच बदली, भ्रष्टाचार मुक्त व्यवस्थाएं बनाई। मोदी जी ने सुनिश्चित किया कि ये सब चीजें अब सिर्फ और सिर्फ नीलामी से या ऑक्शन से, प्रॉपर बिडिंग प्रोसेस से दी जाएंगी, जिससे ये सब पैसा भ्रष्टाचार के बदले सरकारी खजाने में आएगा और सरकारी खजाने में आके 11 वर्ष की जो यात्रा हम सब ने अनुभव की है, उसमें हम एक फ्रैजाइल 5 इकोनॉमी से आज विश्व की चौथी सबसे बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था बन गए।
The minister further added that free trade agreement with the EFTA countries, namely Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway and Switzerland, which was finalized in March 2024, will come into effect from the 1st of October this year.
परसों से 1 तारीख से 4 देशों का समूह स्विट्जरलैंड, लिechtenstein, नॉर्वे और आइसलैंड, इनका एक समूह है एफ्टा, यूरोपियन फ्री ट्रेड एसोसिएशन। उन चारों देशों का फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट मार्च 2024 में हमने फाइनल किया था। वो 1 अक्टूबर से लागू हो जाएगा और उसका लाभ आप सब ले पाएंगे। यूएस के साथ बातचीत चल रही है, ईयू के साथ, यानी ईयू के 27 देशों का समूह, उनके साथ बातचीत चल रही है।
The 42nd edition of the Indian Coast Guard Commanders Conference began in New Delhi on Monday. Spanning 3 days, this premier annual forum brings together the Coast Guard's senior leadership to deliberate on strategic, operational and administrative imperatives amidst evolving geopolitical dynamics and maritime security challenges. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has lauded the Coast Guard for its swift and decisive action during high-risk incidents, including the MV Van Hai 503 fire and the sinking of the MV MSC ELSA-3, which showcased the force's operational readiness and environmental protection capabilities.
कोस्ट गार्ड ने मल्टी एजेंसी कोऑर्डिनेशन को एक स्ट्रेंथ के रूप में डेवलप किया है। स्टेट्स की सिविल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के साथ मिलकर आप जिस प्रकार सीमलेस काम करते हैं वो अपने आप में मैं मानता हूं कि यूनिक है। साथियों, आज मैरीटाइम सिक्योरिटी के परिप्रेक्ष्य में कोस्ट गार्ड सिर्फ सिक्योरिटी प्रोवाइडर ही नहीं है, बल्कि एक फोर्स मल्टीप्लायर ये बन चुकी है। नेवी और अन्य एजेंसीज के साथ मिलकर आप जो सिनर्जी क्रिएट कर रहे हैं वही हमारी ओवरऑल नेशनल सिक्योरिटी आर्किटेक्चर को और भी मजबूत कर रही है।
And DD India's Nandita Dagar summed up the opening day of the Coast Guard Commanders Conference in New Delhi. Take a listen.
Our Indian Coast Guard, which has the mandate of protecting and saving lives in 46 lakh square kilometers of the Indian Ocean region, began with just 7 surface platforms in the year 1977. Today, the Coast Guard possesses more than 150 surface platforms and more than 75 aircrafts, including helicopters. Next year, the Coast Guard will be celebrating its 50th Raising Day, and it looks forward to another glorious 50 years. Next year, the Indian Coast Guard will be hosting the 5th International Coast Guard Summit, the largest in the world, and in the next 5 years, the Indian Coast Guard will be possessing more than 200 surface platforms or vessels and more than 100 aircraft, including helicopters and reconnaissance aircraft. Today, the Defence Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, when he was addressing the top commanders of the Coast Guard at the 42nd Annual Coast Guard Commanders Conference, he appreciated the yeoman service that the Coast Guard has rendered in saving lives. In the last year alone, the Coast Guard in 76 search and rescue missions has saved 74 lives, truly realizing its motto of Vayam Rakshama, or we protect. With camera person Sunny in New Delhi, this is Nandita Dagar for DD India.
In a significant step towards enhancing rail connectivity in the eastern Indian state of Bihar, Railways Minister Ashwini Vaishnav flagged off 7 new trains via video conferencing. The trains flagged off from Patna Junction include 3 Amrit Bharat Express trains, marking a major milestone in the expansion of affordable and efficient rail services across the country. With the addition of these 3 Amrit Bharat Express trains, the nationwide count rises to 15, with a majority, 13 of them, operating from Bihar. Minister Vaishnav said that Prime Minister Modi has focused on developing the railways in underserved regions since taking office in 2014. Major General Paul Ovor Otieno, commander of the Kenya Navy, called on General Upendra Dwivedi, Chief of the Defence Staff, on Monday. The interaction highlighted the enduring friendship between India and Kenya, with discussions focused on advancing bilateral defense cooperation and enhancing regional security. Both leaders deliberated on the prevailing geostrategic environment in the Indian Ocean region and reaffirmed their shared commitment to peace and stability. To sports news now, Secretary of the Board of Control for Cricket in India, Devajit Saikia, said the board will lodge a strong protest against Mohsin Naqvi, the president of the Asian Cricket Council, over misconduct at the International Cricket Council. India beat Pakistan by 5 wickets in the Asia Cup final, but the presentation ceremony was cut short just before the winner's trophy was to be handed out. Naqvi, also Pakistan's Interior Minister, walked away with trophy and medals after the men in blue refused to accept it from him. India celebrated their win by hoisting an imaginary trophy. Saikia said India cannot accept the trophy from a person who represents the country that is waging a war against India.
We cannot accept a trophy from a person who represents a country, that country is waging a war against our country. So we have refused to take that trophy, but that does not mean that that gentleman will take the trophy and the medals which is to be given to our country to his own hotel room. So that is totally unexpected, and we hope that good sense will prevail and he will send back the trophy to the country, that means to India, as soon as possible. That will restore some semblance of morality. At least we are expecting that from him. And in any case, BCCI as well as we are going to lodge a very strong protest against the behavior of the gentleman in today's prize distribution ceremony.
Thank you. Two-time Olympian Srihari Nataraj delivered a sensational performance to secure 3 medals at the Asian Aquatics Championships in Ahmedabad. Nataraj claimed India's first swimming medal at the championships in 16 years with a silver in the men's 200-meter freestyle event. He also bagged the second silver medal in the 50-meter backstroke event. Later in the day, Nataraj returned to help India clinch bronze in the men's 4x100-meter medley relay alongside Rishabh Anupam Das, Likith SP and Rohit Benedictine. And that's all for this edition of DD India Live. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can get the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS platforms. You may wish to scan the QR code that's now on the screen to download it. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.